You are now watching Footyprime, the podcast, hosted by Danny Dicchio, Craig Forrest, and James Sharman.
Yes, it is Footyprime, the podcast, once again, back in our cozy home of eggplant, pictures and sound. Last week, of course, we were at BMO Field, post-Canada's famous victory, and I had a great chat with Alex McKechnie and John Fitzgerald. Please, if you haven't listened to that podcast, give it a whirl. It was a really good one, despite Danny and Craig and myself. The other two guys made it.
Yeah, Alex was legendary.
Top form.
Top form, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we got to drink beer as well, which is refreshing.
I think they had a few more before the game.
Possibly.
And during.
Possibly, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Not quite sure.
Of course, we're the professionals of the outfit, so we would never do that.
Yep.
We're on coffee today, though, following another fascinating weekend of football, both domestically in North America, and we'll get to TFC later in today's show, but also, of course, from around the world of football. And, all right, Deech, you coached this weekend. You're in Atlanta. Craig, you watched lots of football this weekend. I watched lots of football this weekend. What gets to me from watching this weekend is how form can vary so much in professional football. I don't quite get it. So, obviously, Man United tied Liverpool 1-1, right? Now, entering this one, on paper at least, there's no way this should have been a 1-1 draw. United were just dreadful all year. No character, no fight, no tactical acumen from the gaffer. And, of course, the Reds, 8-0 in the season, rolling to a championship. The quadruple was going to be theirs, no problem at all. But they end up 1-1. Well, what's more frustrating, do you think? Is it being a United fan knowing that that team has that performance, which, okay, well, it wasn't brilliant, but was pretty good in their toolbox, but you just never see it? Or is it more frustrating being a Liverpool fan knowing that every time it seems they play United, they shite the bed? It seems that way, that they can play so much better. What's more frustrating?
Well, I think when you're talking about the situation where teams are playing against different types of tactical nuances, might appear as though the team is out of form from one week to the next too. But they might struggle against a side that puts blocks and sit deep, Danny. And we've seen that against Man City. You see Liverpool. To be fair to Man United, they sat back deep. They were at home when they sat. They were looking to try to get a result and defend well and look for those opportunities and try and get those chances and score. But overall, I thought the performance was good and Ole got it right and deserved to get a point. Salah was missing as well. That certainly seemed to look definitely like a problem for them a little bit. But a little bit frustrating, but overall, I think it's a great start for Liverpool. Still, let's get it right.
Still unbeaten, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad result away.
See, I disagree. I with all these kind of pundits saying what a great performance is by Man United, I don't think it was a great performance. Okay, they changed the system a little bit. They went to a back three, and you could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to sit a little bit deeper and hit Liverpool on the counter-attack. It was a limp performance from Liverpool, especially in the first half. They started to get some rhythm going in the second half late on with the inclusion of Lallana, who was a surprise goal scorer for them. But I just thought it was a dab affair. I agree with Roy Keane's comments afterwards. He said that wasn't a Man United-Liverpool derby to me. There was a lack of quality to the game. Yeah, there was a little bit more fight from Manchester United, but you expect that. You play for Manchester United Football Club.
Do you think the modern day game, and you look at the two, I'm expecting fireworks from the two sides, like you said. But with the modern game, it's changed.
Especially with what's up for grabs as well, Craig. Like Man United have been performing terribly this year. Okay, we all know their gripes, and what I didn't like was the media circus surrounding the game in wanting Ole to fail. It was like it was his last stand. But what I would say, come on, it's a Man United-Liverpool derby. You played in Ipswich-Norwich derbies, Craig. Mm-hmm. They were fierce. I played in Millwall-West Ham derbies, QPR-Chelsea derbies, Sunderland-Newcastle derbies. If you can't get up for them games, then you got to have a look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, these are the big games we look forward to. But the big question, as you said, Shams, is: are you upset with Man United's lack of performance over the start of the season, or Liverpool's limp performance. The big question, or the big probably word that most managers really, really fail to deal with, is consistency. We're all looking for consistency. In everyday life, we're looking for consistency. But you look at Man City last year, the consistency of their performances week in, week out, even though they were in Europe, was of high level. Now, Pep's starting to struggle a little bit with his team this year. Is that because of certain players that are missing within the squad, or certain players that have moved on, or certain players getting a little bit older now? Because it's an aging squad now, Man City. But consistency is a big, big thing in football, Shams. And if you can get that right, which Liverpool did to a degree last year, but they just fell short a little bit for the league, can they go on this year? Everyone's expecting them to be the new Invincibles this year, Craig. I'm not sure. Do you think they can go a whole year without losing? I don't think.
Do you see in the sign in the stands, a Reds fan had unbearable. All the trophies, unbearable, because it's so stressful watching them trying to, get these trophies. Yeah. And it's a good point. Yeah. But this was also post-international break, right? When you played, was it a bit of a gong show, that first game back, the first week back, when all these players are arriving from around the world?
It could be, yeah. It's difficult. It's a tough one for the managers too, to get everybody back on the same page and focus, because the travel can be horrendous, and definitely plays a part. I mean, we see the MLS sides in North America just traveling, 3-hour time change back and forth. NBA, Alex McKechnie was talking a lot about the travel and sleep patterns and things like that. So
time zones are a big factor, and if you're looking at a time zone of 5 to 6 hours, 7-hour time change, you're not going to be able to perform at your highest peak for sure.
Still, you mentioned, how the rivalries aren't perhaps what they used to be, and Roy Keane again was at it yesterday, and he made a good point. And I've always thought this, although I think it's naive and a bit ignorant, how pre-match in the tunnel you saw all the players hugging and shaking hands and stuff, right? And he goes, that's inexcusable. When he was captaining United, you wouldn't see his teammates, hugging and shaking hands with Liverpool players.
No,
but
he was lining up with Vieira in the tunnel even before the game started.
Oh yeah.
But the reality today, though, is with modern players, you might have the same sponsors and do off season you're hanging out together. You might be playing internationally together. That hatred, it just isn't there between teams, is it?
No, it isn't. Not at the same level. We've talked about that even with some of the other derbies, even West Ham when they're playing Spurs and things like this. Is not, you got internationals from all around the world, and you learn what's going on in the club and obviously your rivalries and things like this. But you're right. You're friends with the left back. You play internationally, or you play against each other on a regular basis internationally or with each other. So it is different.
But you're still competing. Like, you remember what it's like in small-sided games. Even though we might have played for the same team, Craig, on a Friday or a Thursday, the competitive side of wanting to beat my teammate who I'm going out with on a Saturday to play a game against an opponent, but to beat him on a Thursday or Friday was part of the banter and the competitive side that was kind of bred within that team. And that's what kind of sends teams on to be successful. One of my pet hates, going back to like the hugs and kisses before game starting, was at half-time seeing players swapping jerseys or going up to players asking for I fucking hate that. Yeah. I hate it.
Yeah.
It really
that's
pisses
disrespectful,
me off.
I think, to the fans.
To the fans, but also, like, okay, even if you are an admirer of that player, or you grew up together somewhere, there's a time and place to do that.
Do it off
of the field, after the game, or in the changing room. Don't do that in front of everyone, in front of the cameras, in front of the punters and the supporters that are expecting you to go tooth and now with this player to fight for the 3 points or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's another pet hate of mine. I'll just get it off my chest. Sorry.
No, I agree with you. That's always driven me crazy as well. And even though it's naive, to believe that these players are really enemies, because they're not, for what we just discussed. Before a match, at least optically, when the cameras are rolling, just do it for the fans. Don't make a big show of, there's my mate, I was playing with him last week in Brazil. Like, I know they didn't grow up following these rivalries. Most of these players, there's so few English players in these teams.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they should be cognizant of the fact that we should at least put on a bit of a show here. Yeah. I'm not talking about 2 feet over the ball and throwing elbows, although that's kind of great in certain games, right? Especially this one over the years. But play hard, don't look upset when you've lost.
Yeah. I remember when I mean, obviously I was naive when I went over there as a 16-year-old to the UK, but when I was on trial at Ipswich, I remember they were playing in the Milk Cup, the League Cup.
Yeah.
It was called the Milk Cup.
When it
at
was
the time.
important.
When it was big, it was a big deal.
huge,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So some of the players from Ipswich went on train. They're playing against Norwich. So that was my first taste of seeing a rivalry like that. And as a player, you right away I understood standing in the terrace, taking 50p pieces coming flying at you. People were getting cuts, and I was like, oh boy. So when I ended up playing against Norwich, obviously I understood what it was like to stand in the terrace and what it meant to the fans.
Did you ever play against Norwich with Jimmy Brennan playing for Norwich?
No.
I did.
You did, yeah?
But not for
But that's
Ipswich.
before you knew. Oh, right. That's before you knew Jimmy, though, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's too bad.
Did you elbow?
You're going to say any
Of course,
stories?
yeah.
Of course. Did you bite his ear?
No. Actually, Jimmy done me pretty badly.
You
at
tried to bite a
Southampton.
guy's ear in for Toronto SC.
No, I did not.
You got red card for it.
No.
You got red card
I
for
did
eating
not
someone.
bite anyone's ears.
You ate, wasn't his ear. It was his.
Was it his nose?
I was just a little bit peckish that day.
Features cannibalism.
Yeah. Yeah. The new Suarez. Have a little nibble.
But was there a player, like when you played, was there a certain player in a certain team you just hated and you wanted to get a little bit on him whenever you got a chance? Was there one player? I'm sure there's a few, but
Yeah.
start with you, Craig.
Well,
As a goalkeeper's a bit different, right?
A little bit different, yeah. I mean, there's certain players, like we talk about Roy Keane. I mean, he comes straight to the top of my head again, like with knowing that if it's a 50-50, you're going to have to be prepared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. So he.
I mean, there's the odd guy that, that players didn't like, got under your skin a little
Yeah.
bit.
No,
Like
there's
you.
There's loads of
I
players.
didn't particularly like
yeah,
you.
yeah, that's a good point. Okay, let's talk about
I
you.
hate
You remember
goalkeepers.
playing against Danny?
Yeah.
Yeah, really. So
Yeah,
what was the pre-game? Was his name brought up in the pre-game meeting?
That he was a big lump.
yeah, that's what I mean. Exactly. Were you telling watch out for that arsehole?
He's good at one thing. He's not going to beat you with pace.
The thing is, as well, back in like the early 90s, goalkeepers were not protected at all shams. So for a big striker, big centre forward, it was
Free game?
It was free
Yeah.
game, but it was also
Yeah.
pretty nice because most strikers don't like goalkeepers anyway. They're,
Right.
they're our enemy. They're stopping
Yeah.
But
us
it's not
from
as if they're
being
small
even more
little
successful.
diminutive
Yeah.
figures either.
Oh,
They're
but it
big
was even
boys.
better if they were bigger because you had kind of more body to go and hit on the back of them or
And
on
they
the
wouldn't
side
give a foul.
ribs, everything.
Not if they were challenging.
You could put the keeper in the back of the net with a ball and late 80s, early 90s, that would be classed as a goal.
So the game plan for Craig playing against a West Brom or a Sunderland against Dicchio was watch out for the big galoot up front. He's going to throw some elbows.
To be fair, everybody had one,
yeah,
right? Everybody had a Danny Dicchio.
right. Okay, Deech, what was the
And
game plan?
Andre
What was the game
Most
plan?
goalkeepers as well, back in those days, would not catch a ball. It was kind of told to them, look, if you're being challenged from a corner kick or a free kick, don't even think about catching the ball because you're going to be challenged.
Punch through it.
So unless your defenders are protecting the goalkeeper, which was a tactic as well, and your goalkeeper's going up with his whole body kind of open and not protected, you're basically told to either punch it or get rid of it.
And if you get a bit of the striker in the meantime, then so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What was the game plan facing Craig Forrest? Do you remember?
Just to try and score.
Yeah.
Try and put it in
There's
the back of
no.
the net.
Just hit the target.
There's no like desperate weakness, is what I'm saying.
No. There was certain kind of games where we knew goalkeepers were either not comfortable with their feet, or I would have like my coach tell
unlikely
me
to come for crosses.
or their weak side was diving to their left. They were more prominent in diving to their right. So we knew certain aspects of trying to hurt a goalkeeper in that sense. But there was no real game plan to say we have to target this goalkeeper in this way.
Nobody was that weak.
Yeah, I'm going to
At
say
that
you're
position
playing,
at that level, right?
Prem or championship level football. You're pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a youngster coming in, he's playing his debut,
Yeah, pepper.
pepper him.
Yeah.
Like put the ball on top of him and see what he's got. Test him. Danny will leave an elbow on him. You know, guys like Vinnie Jones leave an elbow on you.
Yeah.
You know, like playing the crazy game Wimbledon. That was an experience. Or even Cambridge in the
John Beck
second.
days, yeah.
Right. And John Beck was a ex-Spurs, bit of a player.
Yeah.
But then just was direct. Anybody that did more than 2 touches on the pitch was off, basically.
Right.
So his touch, flip it over the back, just keep turning
Good old-fashioned
teams over
football.
and over, long throw-ins. The goalkeepers were picked
See Wally
on the
Downs.
Friday.
Wally Downs
Yeah.
Left Wimbledon this weekend.
I remember.
Oh, did he?
I remember as a youngster playing against the Crazy Gang at Wimbledon. Sorry, no, it was at Loftus Road, and I just broke into the first team, and they had everyone there: Fashanu, Jones, Sanchez, Wise.
Dennis
Like they
Wise.
had the full credit. And in the tunnel before the game was probably one of the most liveliest tunnels I've ever been in, and they were trying to intimidate.
So they weren't hugging and shaking hands
No. They were properly
step on your toes and-
intimidating
in the tunnel.
Yeah, in the
especially
tunnel.
to all the younger guys.
Yeah.
Who was the most intimidating? Was it Vinnie Jones?
You could take your pick.
Yeah.
Like they had.
I mean, he was a thug, whereas the Fashionus
Besson
and the
was in
Wises,
goal
they
as
played
well.
with an edge, but they were good players.
Yeah, he had an ability too. Yeah, but Wise had an edge to him. Sanchez had an edge to him. Everybody.
It was pretty funny as well because
Besant.
just as I'm in the process of leaving QPR, and my contract's coming up, and the QPR chairman's come in to me and he said, "Look, we're going to sell you regardless because your contract's up at the end of the year." So I said, "Okay, but I'm going to make the decision where I go." So they said, "We've agreed a fee with Sunderland and Wimbledon."
Is it during the Crazy Gang era?
During the Crazy Gang era. So, okay, you've got to go for talks with Wimbledon. I said, okay, so I'll go, I'll be professional and talk to Joe Kinnear was the head coach at the time, and Mad Sam was the chairman.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone over to his house, lived near London Zoo as well. Nicely lives right near the zoo, Wimbledon owner, Sam Haman, I think his name is.
Yeah, Sam Haman, yeah.
So I've turned up with my agent, and I've gone into the house, big house near London Zoo, Swiss Cottage Way, beautiful house. I've turned up, and Joe and him are in the living room, and they've got like loud EDM dance music playing. So I've gone in, fucking, what's going on here?
You liked a bit of that, didn't you?
Yeah, so they've got come in, sat down on these big like
DJ
plush Persian rugs everywhere, sofa. I've gone, "Hi Sam," and he's gone, "Hi." He said, "Do you like the music?" I've gone, "Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not really my taste. I'm more into like my UK garage and a little bit vocal." He's gone, "We put that on especially for you. I've got these speakers made for you." He's gone, "You are going to be a big player for us." So I've gone, okay. And he's starting to make me feel good, as you usually do as an owner. And then Joe starts speaking about the tactics. And then the chairman said, "The big reason we really want you to sign is because we know you're a big DJ on the circuit, and we think you'd be unbelievable for our dressing room."
That's why they wouldn't have signed you.
So I've gone, hold on a minute. You're not signing me for my footballing
DJ Danny.
talent.
That's what it is.
You're signing me for the dressing room to get the dressing room pumped
Were
up
you
before the
offended
game.
by that, or were you like, actually,
I was like,
that'd be all right?
it's a new way of trying to put move forwards, but I had to
That's hilarious.
decline in a nice way and say,
Was that why you declined, or I mean?
No,
there must have
I'd
been
already
some
made my
football
mind
talk
up
there.
to
Was
go
that around
to
when
Italy.
John Hartson went there?
I don't know if Johnny was there or not. I really don't. I can't. It was around 97, 90.
So towards the end of the
Oh,
Crazy
would've been
Gang era,
early.
right?
Yeah,
They're
they
all
were
kind of
just
aging in a
trying
little
to
bit.
kind of move
Hang on.
forward, transition into a new Crazy Gang, and they wanted me to be the DJ
You
of
were the new fashion.
Crazy Gang.
That's brilliant.
You would have been perfect.
Perfect profile.
It's amazing some of the angles these clubs use to try and recruit players. Right? It's not always about the football, is it? It's what else can we give you here? Any stories, Craig?
Not really.
None that you can say, actually.
Big Harry didn't set you up with anything, or West Ham? Entice you with anything, Craig?
No,
No brown envelopes of Harry?
no,
No?
nada.
Not they can say anyway without facing libel or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to think, but
I remember there was once upon a time a TFC manager who would offer crates and crates of champagne.
Yes.
And if you come here, we'll also give you this. Or
Free
so
cha-
the rumour has it.
Free champagne around the city as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
mine was all above board.
On to the next
Sure
one.
it was. That's great. DJ Danny, maybe you should cut some tracks for our theme song. Right?
Maybe. I
Well,
like a lot of the specials as
Yeah,
well, which we
exactly.
like.
Well, enough about Danny Dichio's DJ years and how he was romanced by some of the shadier characters. Sorry, the most colourful characters
Exactly.
in Premier League history. I did mention TFC there, and the glory days. It wasn't the glory days at all. The glory days came far later, and we might be about to embark on another glorious run in the playoffs. Quite the
It wasn't
match.
far later.
Well, in the concept of TFC, it was. They're short. They're a young club,
Yes, they were.
right? And they're crap for a long time, and now they're
Yeah,
pretty
they
good
were.
again.
I covered them. I mean, we were doing the first 5 years. I think me and Jerry Dobson had 5 wins in the first 55 games we covered.
Brutal. And now all these glory hunters come aboard late in the campaigns, guys like Joshua Kloke from The Athletic, and they're just, reaping the rewards of this improved TFC. Joshua Kloke writes for The Athletic. He wrote a great book, The History of TFC. He knows all about it. Come on your heads. Josh, welcome to Footyprime, our first ever interview over Skype. So what could possibly go wrong?
Maybe I could be perceived as a good luck charm. Maybe not a glory hunter, a good luck charm.
That's a nice way of putting it, yeah.
I'm a bit of an optimist, but thanks for having me.
Not at all. No, you know what? That sounds much better. You're the good luck charm. It was quite the game, though, on the weekend. They almost threw it away, 1-1, off to extra time, and they just smash DC United. It does seem, Josh, that the momentum's really building with this team, albeit somewhat late in that match.
Yeah, but they've been building momentum throughout the end of the regular season as well. Their spring and early summer, when they lost players to the Gold Cup, when they didn't get the players that Greg Vanney wanted through that first transfer window, it was pretty ugly. And there was a lot of talk in and around the club about the safety of Greg Vanney's job and who would be left if TFC missed the playoffs again. But they've turned it around with, let's not call them glamorous performances, but they're getting the job done. And I think if you ask, some of the coaches, that's what they're after. They're after just, playing any style of game and handling, whatever the game gives them. So it's not necessarily going to look pretty all the time, but I don't think it has to be at this time of the year, right?
No. Hey, Josh, what? Another thing is that momentum in the structure of Major League Soccer, so different than European soccer, that momentum's everything going into the playoffs. And we've seen that with Toronto FC. We've seen it many times over the history of Major League Soccer. It just is what it is, and that's what seems to be Toronto FC's idea now, is going into it with great momentum and really played a terrific game, especially that extra time. I thought that was one of the best first halves of extra time I've ever seen, and the finishing was top-notch.
It was, and you kind of, when TFC allow that goal with, I think, 2 minutes left, you kind of, you cringe and you think to yourself, they never make it easy on themselves, and they almost never have, and you just think, is that the kind of thing that could swing the momentum back DC's way? So there's still a lot of doubt and uncertainty about this club. I think they can go on a run, but I think it would surprise a lot of people. So for them to kind of come back and stomp down DC the way they did, and really not allow DC to build any momentum at all going into that extra frame, I think it was a good sign to see. There's still 3 games left, but it's a sign of encouragement from a team that really hasn't had a lot this season, right?
John, what do you think about the new format, the one-off games? I got to say that we quite like it. It brings teams into it right away. If you're playing like DC has to go for it in these matches, the 2-legged one matches I find weren't quite as exciting. So I think they might have got it right with this format. What do you think?
So I go back to 2017 when TFC is on the road against Columbus for that first game of the conference finals, and they're without Seba and they're without Josie. And it was one of the most excruciatingly painful 0-0 draws I've ever watched. And I'm there in Columbus just banging my head against the desk thinking, this is awful. This is awful from an entertainment perspective because neither team is going for it. TFC literally just want to keep the game boring. And with this new format, there's not going to be any of that. Maybe that last game between LA and Minnesota didn't have the entertainment value that the other games did. But every single game was so high on drama because teams realized we can't just sit back. We can't just kind of pick and prod, and we can't wait for the second leg to really turn it on. We have to go for it now. And anything that also provides a bit of value to the regular season, which some would argue is probably too long. Look, TFC had their one home game, and that's it. They're not going to have any more home games, even if they play the final 3 games of the playoffs. So I love it. I really do. And I think the other thing that's good about it is you do it all before the next international break, which to me was super important because that 2-week break leading into MLS Cup, that just drained all the momentum out of the playoffs and the storylines. So yeah, I'm a fan too.
Josh, just speaking about the character shown the other night, and I think it's a good sign for the team. I think they're about 10 or 11 unbeaten now going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Is that right? Speaking about the players that have come in this year, and we saw some really good performances the other night as well, but Q stood on his head again, made some big saves in the second half. Richie come into the game and scored his first goal for the club. De Leon scored against his ex-club as well. Who's been your standout new player this year? I mean, we're missing Omar Gonzalez as well, who's been a big presence for us back there. But who's been your standout player for us this year, one of the new signings?
Well, you kind of mentioned some of them, but to me, the guys that stand out are these Greg Vanney projects, right? You look at a guy like Richie Larea, who came in for league minimum, really impressive. I mean, he's playing for a contract. He's playing for his future. Nick DeLeon obviously didn't have a future with DC, so he comes in and he obviously has a connection with Greg Vanney as well. I don't think a lot of people would have predicted Westberg to play the way he did. I think you come in and maybe he's looked at as the backup to Bono. Obviously that's changed, but for me it's got to be Nick DeLeon, just in that he's an MLS veteran. He's a player that knows, how to win and how long the season has been. And when TFC were losing players to the Gold Cup, Nick DeLeon was putting in consistent, not glamorous, but consistent performances. He was kind of the fill-in spot there while TFC were waiting to see who would be those wide players. And you look at him coming in off the bench against DC, just scores a cracker of a goal, right? And this is the kind of, that's the mentality that you need. Not, if I'm not playing, I'm upset. Nick DeLeon accepts what his role is. His role is to provide, insight and talent, maybe off the bench, but because he's an MLS player that's been there before. And that's what they were kind of lacking in 2018, right? They were lacking players, or a lot of the new signings that came in didn't really understand MLS, didn't have that MLS experience. They didn't understand what a long and grinding season it is. So for me, having Nick DeLeon, a very quiet presence around the room too, right? He's that quiet, calming guy that I think goes a long way. As you guys know, in a dressing room, that kind of presence that doesn't need to say much, but when you look over at him, he's not getting panicked.
Yeah.
He's been here before, so
he's
that's
a reliable guy as well.
And
Greg really
Larea
preaches on that, reliable guys that he can call upon, as you said, that won't sulk if they're not starting, but know that they're a big impact if they're coming off the bench or starting, but a reliable guy that other players can look up to or lean on for some experience that have been in the league for a long, long time. So, yeah, it's a good one. I would say Q's up there as well because Greg really, really preaches on having a goalkeeper that is comfortable with his feet. We're a possession-based team, and you need someone like that. He's not the biggest of profiles, but he's a very good shot stopper. And he came out with 3 or 4 big saves the other night, and he's been on like that for the last month or so now, and he's very, very good with his distribution with his feet as well.
Yeah, I've been really impressed.
Yeah, I noticed something during that last game. Sometime around halftime, Laurent Simon ran over to Osorio and was in his ear. He was kind of giving him the business, and a few of us in the press box said, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." Laurent Simon, of all people, kind of telling Jonathan Osorio what's up. But then you could see afterwards, Laurent runs back to Q and kind of says, "Yes, I gave him the message." And Oso and Q kind of share a thumbs up. So it's not even so much that he's providing that shot stopping when he needs. He sees the pitch really well. He's able to distribute the ball really well. And he is a bit like a quarterback in a way. So it was interesting to see that kind of communication and, to be a player that jumps into a team with no real, experience with the club and feel comfortable enough to kind of start directing traffic. That's a bonus too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously it was a huge win, and we're seeing, as you mentioned there, Josh, Greg Vanney's projects really becoming integral members of this team. Had they have lost to DC, would you have foreseen a big change this off-season at TFC? Has this, I don't want to say prolonged Greg Vanney's tenure at the club? I mean, he's got a championship, he's doing really well, but there was talk about him maybe moving to a different role next year as well. Do you think this confirms more of the same next season?
You know what? I think all season TFC management has looked at this season as one of transition and moving away from the club that they were in 2017, a club built on veterans, right, towards a younger kind of club. And I don't know if that win kind of buys Greg Vanney an extra year. I mean, even if they lose against New York City, I mean, do you consider this season a success? I don't know. There's still so much talent on this roster to expect that they should go pretty far, right? I think that next year's club will look very different. I think you're seeing a lot of veterans from that 2017 side, you know, the Justin Morrows, the Chris Mavingas, the Drew Moores, where you're starting to say it like, how much longer can they keep rolling these guys out? They've all been very serviceable, but I don't think this club is set on just having serviceable players, right? They want to be among the highest spending teams in the league, but they want value for those dollars that they spend, right? So I think we're going to see a very different team, win or lose, next season, because 2017 was a lot of fun and it was a historical year for the club. But, you know, you see this league getting younger, and you see that, you know, you also need to, if you're going to be sustainable, you have to sell your players on, right? They did that with Javinko, but I do think you want to bring in more younger guys so that you can create that kind of sustainable success, right?
Does that include Michael Bradley next season? That's a big question, right?
Yeah, that's the question that's kind of on everybody's mind. And, you know, Bradley has refused to speak about his contract all season. Heading into this game, he kind of told a group of reporters that he doesn't expect that game against DC to be his last, and then had a chance to sit down with Michael Bradley for about half an hour, and I asked him the question that I think a lot of people were wondering: would you take a TAM deal moving forward? Mm-hmm. Would you take something other than a DP deal moving forward? And he was very clear. He said, absolutely. So that was the first time he's kind of expressed, you know, not only just interest in staying at the club, but signing on for a non-DP deal. Because if you look at everything that Michael Bradley has done for this club, I mean, it's kind of a vague term, but he's changed the culture of this club. And that's an incredible thing. But to create sustainable success, you can't reward players with contracts for what they've done. You have to pay them for the player they're going to be. Is Michael Bradley, you know, a $6 million player? I don't know. A lot of people would argue not. Has he done enough at this club to justify another contract and to justify kind of having a chance to work with this new injection of young players? Absolutely. You know, no player in TFC's current roster could offer what Michael Bradley would. So for him to say, yes, he's open to a TAM deal, that changes the landscape moving forward. And I mean, that means that, you know, they could open up a DP spot and bring in someone younger. So I foresee Michael Bradley staying with the club, but now it's on Ali Curtis to determine what kind of ticket could you get him at, and you know, is he who you want with this club moving forward, right? So a little bit of clarity, but still not 100%.
Yeah, great point. I mean, if you can get Bradley, who can still play on a TAM deal, to me, it's just it's a gimme.
That's
it's
a win-win.
Common sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. Joshua, thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate this. Get back to the Leafs. I know right now you're at their practice rink getting set for Columbus tonight, right? I'm a bit jealous of you. I'm a bit of a diehard Leaf fan myself. Who are you talking to today?
Well, I mean, whoever they give us. It's a little different.
It's not TFC, right?
Know, yeah, you can't just ask for you know, any player you want and get a sit down all the time. But look, if you want me to get a word in with someone, I'm happy to be your point man here, Sharms.
I'll tell you what, mate. You just do your research, find out who likes football in that room, and then we'll make the phone calls. We'll use Dickio's fame with MLSE to
Dickio's fame would take you far beyond the Leafs. You got to think bigger with that fame.
Now, listen, I love reading your stuff on The Athletic, be it TFC or Leafs. Thanks so much, mate. We'll chat to you soon.
Good stuff, Josh. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, boys.
That is Joshua Kloke. Really good points. And Michael Bradley, listen, you know, whether he's going to re-sign or not, we'll find out in the coming weeks and months about that. But I think Josh nailed it. When he arrived at TFC, it changed everything. It gave this team an identity, which had been lacking. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's a simple player in many ways, but he does the simple things really well. And he has been the face of that team since he arrived, with respect to Sebastian Javinko.
You know, I'm sure Danny can speak to this, but a lot of the youngsters that are developing through the system. He's a great, if you want to play in that sort of role, he's a great role model to look at as far as how to play that position as well and how to lead on and off the field. He's been terrific for Toronto FC. There's no question about that. One of the best players that they've ever had here. But there's been players too. I mean, with the Giovinco, Altidore, Bradley situation, that signing was excellent. I mean, they paid top dollar for them. Maybe overpaid for some of them for their services, what they are, but it was a changing factor, I think, too, at the club. And Vandy's done a terrific job.
Remember that day when they signed Bradley, and he was kind of in the shadows of the Defoe signing, right? A bloody big deal, right?
That's
and
right.
It turns out there was only one winner that day, and it was Michael Bradley.
Yeah, that was disappointing. I played with Jermaine over for West Ham, and when he came over here, I thought he'd been a perfect fit, perfect size, part of his career to come over. Getting a little bit older, but still had lots to offer. Will score at this level, and unfortunately, I think off the field he wasn't as happy as he was.
The big difference between those two is that Jermaine came over, and we expected a lot, and we were looking for a lot for him, but he didn't really commit to the club. Michael Bradley committed to the club. He really committed to the club, and Josh mentioned it there. He changed the culture within the club as well, which was needed. And when you have someone like that, a captain on the field, but a captain off the field, who has every kind of single detail and input, which is so important to the running of a team off the field, but on the field as well, is an absolute bonus for a club to have. And listen, as Josh just said there, yes, we know that Mike's getting a little bit older and maybe possibly not being worth a DP money deal, but he is so beneficial to Toronto FC that a lot of people don't see it. I see it day to day, what he brings to the club and the environment that he kind of sets, the demands that he sets on other players as well.
He's a coach eventually, right? He'll coach somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether he really wants to be a head coach. I'm not sure. I speak with Mike like daily, but not at full length. But he's a guy that just prepares, and he's constantly a constant professional. In how he prepares and how he trains and how he looks after his body. Like after international games, like most guys take like a day or two to come back and train. I've seen Mike a day after a game for the US away, playing either in Cuba or say playing in the States for his home national team, and he's back on the training field the next day doing a regen. So this is a guy that is an ultimate professional, you know.
He's also a great interview, and from a very selfish standpoint, it's very hard to get good interviews from athletes. Christ, I try every Monday here, I fail miserably. But Bradley, he's so thoughtful though. When he talks, and it's just refreshing compared to other athletes I've had the pleasure of interviewing.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
No, it's absolutely true though. And there's always a bit of a risk when you get these players, you bring them over DP money, like the Defoe. Like I thought that was going to be a perfect fit. So there's a risk around that and who you get and whether they fit and they settle into the club and what you really, really want. And Michael Bradley's been a slam dunk. Defoe wasn't, but you've seen those mistakes made before. But at Toronto FC in the future and even other clubs when they're looking for DPs, it's a nervous thing because you're paying a lot of money for a particular player, and you just hope they turns out to be.
There was some good that we got out of the Defoe deal as well, and
Altidore out of it.
Defoe, exactly. Defoe came across, and I think as a marketing ploy by the club, it opened up a lot more exposure for us.
People still talk about that.
They still
that
talk
big
about
red bus.
Yeah, but also as you just mentioned there, the trade between Josie, who was having a tough time at Sunderland, coming over to North America to kind of
rebuild his career,
but have that hunger to be part of a new project, Toronto FC, and then JJ Defoe going back to Sunderland and scoring very important goals there, whether it be in the derbies or being an idol there as well. So it worked both ways for both players in the end.
Great segue actually, Defoe and Bradley, in that Wayne Rooney was once upon a time, he was more touted than Defoe, but young guys who were going to be superstars coming through the systems at somewhat smaller clubs than they ended up at. Also, a guy that arrived at DC United in MLS as a guy that was supposed to redefine what that club was. So Rooney ends his MLS career this weekend in Toronto, comes off in the second half before the extra time, and you look back in his year and a half in MLS, he signed a 3-year deal. He's going to Derby County now to become a player coach, redefine his career again. But a year and a half, did he accomplish, do you think, what DC wanted? I mean, he got their name on the map, I suppose, but he didn't really, outside of a few great performances, you can hardly say he took the MLS by the horns. And
not like some DPs. I mean, his age, everything, but he had his moments, for sure. I thought overall he did quite well. I don't know about you guys, but when he made the decision to go back to Derby and they announced that decision, what did that do inside the dressing room of DC United? Does it take the edge off it overall?
Well, they had a poor run-in, and I mean, I know he was suspended, but still, they had a poor run-in. Surely it has to have done something to the program.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, again, you're talking about DPs and what you're going to bring from it. I think, did DC get a lot from Rooney and what they did, what they paid for? Probably in many ways, but
they were moving to a new stadium as well, so they needed to put bums on seats. They needed to kind of make that more worthwhile in the sense that we're leaving a stadium that we've been at for a long, long time. We're trying to generate some more support into this new stadium that we've built,
and it's great.
It's a lovely new stadium.
Yeah, some of the new stadiums in the MLS are brilliant, and most you look at clubs that even I played for and at. In the UK, could only dream of some of these stadiums. I mean, they're really fantastic. LA's is great.
Alliance Field last night, where Minnesota played. Is it Alliance Stadium or Alliance Field? Where Minnesota played LA Galaxy. Like, wonderful new stadium. So MLS are doing a cracking job in that sense. But again, going back to Rooney, what I would say, and what we just mentioned about Defoe is the commitment. So when you're coming across as a DP, we saw Stevie Gerrard with it a little bit with LA, Wayne Rooney, Defoe.
Even Beckham.
Even Beckham to a degree. For you to come across and be a success, I think you have to show the commitment what the clubs are investing in you as well. And that means you're not just coming across by yourself, you're coming across with your family. And I'm not talking about settling down like I did at Toronto. See, I made a big commitment in that sense where we were setting roots here, but coming across to say, okay, we are being invested not only in the club, but in the community as well. And I'm not saying these guys that did enough to put their clubs on the map, but I think that resonates with the players that you're kind of going out on the field with or you're socialising with every day as well. And
it seemed Bastian Schweinsteiger did that. It seems Chicago, he's retired this off-season as well, right? But he's a guy that really committed to that community and that team as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps they didn't get the success on the field that they'd hoped, but there's no doubting Schweinsteiger's commitment to that whole program.
Big time. And I think when you're an owner, a club owner, you spoke about it, finding the right DP is so important, Craig. So yes, we know that they're big names coming over, but also doing your background check on these players, what they're like in the locker room, what's their off the field life's like. Like, I'm sure there's been a lot of money thrown at Mesut Ozil at the moment at Arsenal. He's going through a tough time there. They're talking about him not training properly, maybe being a little bit of a dark horse in the locker room as well. So if you're a club owner, a prospective club owner that's looking for a DP, willing to spend $5 to $6 to $7 to $8 million per year on a certain player to come across and be kind of a standout player, but also be a kind of leader within the community or for your club, with the media, all the different aspects that come with being a designated player. That's a tough job or tough role to find a player that way as well. And
they also have different roles for their DPs or different expectations. I mean, getting a Schweinsteiger at his age, what is he going to offer you on the field? He might put bums in the seats. I think that was the same with Gerrard, even some certain aspect with David Beckham. But Toronto SC, the way they did it, I thought it was really well done. Maybe overpaying for players, but knowing they're going to fit into this league, they're going to be able to play well, and they're still in their prime.
It wasn't their retirement.
Exactly.
Right? It was.
If you're going to get somebody to come over, I'm not interested in seeing. I mean, love to see some of the old players, but they're not in their prime anymore.
Right.
They're just a name. If you want to actually win things as well, you might have to dig a little deeper.
You're seeing a lot of these South American DPs coming over, unknown players essentially, right? But doing a job at various clubs. They're not big names necessarily. So there's that level of DP, which is, I think, looking long term. And then you have the big name, the Rooney or the Schweinsteiger, right? Who perhaps he's not quite what he was, but at a certain level of stardom, it's still worth it.
The South American and Mexican players that are coming across as DP, they have so much more to offer, I feel. Maybe not as big a names, but also think about the climate that we're playing in the summer. This is a summer league. A lot of European players that come across, I was like it as well. I remember playing in Houston one game, and I'm in the warm-up. I said to the physio, I said, I'm absolutely fucked. This was before the games even started. I was drenched, and this was an evening game in Houston, Texas. I've never, ever experienced something like this.
No. Remember Joe Kinnear, we went down there and we were covering training. So we go to Friday training and it's 8 a.m. and it's like, well, it's a little early for training. But anyway, we get there and they train between 8 and 9 because by literally 9:30 it's unbearable.
Yeah.
Like it's unbearable.
So
and
I
said to Joe, are you enjoying it here? And he says, I love the football. But he goes, as far as anything else goes, he goes, living here? He goes, I've been to hell.
So do your homework then.
Terrible.
All these players that come here and are surprised by the climate or the travel, like, do your bloody homework.
Yeah.
It's not difficult. You got an entourage of people. You got managers, assistants. Do Google climate in Houston. It's bloody hot. Jesus.
And it's different
No
in Dallas.
sympathy for these
It's much
guys.
better in Dallas.
Yeah.
The
Just
humidity in Houston is just disgusting.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? But just I've got no sympathy for these guys that come over and then surprised by what they're encountering. Like,
that's true.
Come on, guys, wake the hell up. Jesus. I want to mention quickly, going back to the Premier League here, because a number popped out to me this weekend. It was crazy to me, and that was so Leicester. They beat Burnley 2-1. Leicester's, my God, they're a good team. Eh? Lose Harry Maguire, who cares? Yeah. Right, they're fantastic.
Brilliant.
But Jamie Vardy scored his 6th of the season. He's now 4th in the goal scoring charts. Right, he's now scored, according to Statman Dave on Twitter, who's brilliant. He scored 86 Premier League goals. Right, more than Fernando Torres, Eden Hazard, Cristiano Ronaldo, Carlos Tevez, and just one behind Dennis Bergkamp.
Wow.
Yet we'll never, ever consider him in the same class of any of those players. Why?
Because his name's not sexy enough.
If it's Vardici, would that be different?
Vardinho?
Vardinho?
Is
that what it is, though?
It's just
your name didn't work for you.
Yeah. I was known as Danny Dick.
Danny Dick?
Yeah. That's what they called me back in...
The Dick?
Hey, Danny Dick.
Yeah.
You've never been a Daniele Dicchio. But no, what an accomplishment, by the way, by Vardy. And it wasn't really a Vardy-esque goal at the weekend. It was a cross and a fantastic leaping header. But remember, we've spoken about this when we used to be TV pundits on Sportsnet.
Those were the days.
But what an accomplishment for a young man that come through the lower leagues. He got released at a young age by Sheffield Wednesday. He had to work his way back up again through the lower leagues at Fleetwood, and then got.
Was he the
moved to
first
Leicester.
£1 million non-league purchase?
Yes.
I think he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what a career he's had. I mean, not so much about his wife in the papers at the moment, but what a career he's had.
Yeah.
Like a stellar player, a different type of player as well. He's not your kind of sexy striker that will hold up the ball and can make movement in beyond and score various goals, although he scored a lovely header as we spoke about. But really dynamic, gets in behind defences. He's that pest. He's that midge that you can't get rid of, and that pesky striker that is always on the move in the box and can finish very, very well.
I'm glad he stayed at Leicester.
Yeah.
Great point. Could have gone to Arsenal, right? They bid for him.
Yeah, but stay at Leicester. I mean, he's an absolute legend there. He always will be. There'll be statues. Like when there's some. He's getting paid well, obviously, and some of that loyalty. I think down the road he'll be happy that he did that.
It's a great point. Yeah, I think it could be a lesson for a lot of players. That just because he did play Champions League for that year, right? He got that opportunity with Leicester. He might again next year.
And he suits Leicester, and he always has suited their system, and they play really well to him. Every manager plays well to him when he does, and I think at Arsenal, I'm not sure it would have worked for him. He could have drifted out of the game as quickly as he came into it.
Yeah. But I mean, what a story! Not only him, but Leicester as well. This resurgence this year. They were okay last year, but Brendan Rodgers, he's. I don't know how he's seen as a bit of a laughingstock in some quarters. I never quite understood it. You know, he's got an ego, which is fine. A lot of managers do, but you can't deny what he's done, both in Scotland and now coming to England once again and doing a great job with Leicester. He's a good manager.
He's a very good manager, and I think when you look at what his record has been within the Premier League and Scotland with Celtic as well, but having that kind of record and the style of play that his teams adopt, where they're a possession-based team, they like to play with the ball on the floor, but they can be flexible as well in trying to hit Vardy on the attack as well. But I love watching his teams play. As I said, they play a style of football that is very easy on the eye. But I agree with you. He's kind of got a tainted image, and I really don't know why. I think it's maybe because of maybe it killed him a bit. Where the Liverpool documentary, but he seems to get the best out of his players. He seems like he's a player manager as well, and I think this could be an audition again, maybe possibly for another big job coming up for him in the future. If he gets Leicester into Europe this year, I have no doubt that a big club will come in for him again.
He's definitely ambitious. I mean, leaving the job in Scotland, pretty cozy there, did very well, and taking over a club like Leicester, who have ownership too, that have high expectations. They won the league, just off the back of that a few years. That's hard to live up to, and he's done a really good job adapting this squad. And
this weekend was the anniversary of the helicopter crash that claimed Leicester's owner. Remember that last year? Such a surreal weekend, wasn't it? We're covering it.
That's been a year already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Time flies.
So an emotional weekend in Leicester, but boy, they're getting the job done, and they could very much be part of the top 4 picture by the end of the season, that's for sure. Almost out of time, fellas. Got time for the big question, though. Anything that's jumping out at you as far as looking into the week ahead?
VAR. It's driving me
VAR.
crazy.
What a crazy weekend it was for VAR.
I thought it worked perfectly.
I don't know. It's like, for me, it's taking the emotion out of the game now. Like, players don't know whether to celebrate. They don't know whether to stick or twist. They have no idea what's going on. The referees don't. I haven't seen a referee go to a TV monitor yet.
I know.
He just checks on his ear and he's relying on someone else to make that decision.
Well, Christ, do you see the Spurs game this weekend?
Game?
Ali scores a goal, right? He goes to VAR after the Foster mistake, and then the screen had the
Says no
wrong
goal.
message up there saying no goal. So no one knew what the hell was going on. Even the video technicians have no idea what's going on.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And I'm not talking about it slowing down the game, Craig. I'm just saying there's just so much that the Premier League offers, and I think it's taking a little bit of that excitement away, and even the fans are kind of laughing at it a little bit because they don't know whether to celebrate or not, because they don't want to be seen as celebrating too early, where now the other fans are going, hold on, this is not going to be given. Yeah. And they're giving them stick for celebrating.
Yeah.
So
it's a new world. It's a new world for sure.
Well, Klopp had a great comment this weekend, and he kind of nailed it. He goes, the problem is that the ref lets it run because we've got VAR, and then VAR doesn't want to overrule the ref.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point, and that's exactly what's happening. We're seeing it, that the VAR quite clear. They don't want to get over the back, and they don't want to undermine the referee. So unless it's blatantly obvious. So the Mane penalty against Leicester? I think it was Leicester. Got clipped very softly at the back of the leg, goes down, right? I mean, everybody can agree that he embellished.
Yeah.
No, but then the United one, but the one before.
Oh, sorry, okay.
When they given a penalty late in that game.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
If the referee doesn't give it, I don't think they give it. But because he gave it, they're not going to take it away because it's not blatant, it's not clear and obvious. And then you see the United game when probably a foul, let's be fair, and then they go back to look at it, but it's not clear and obvious, just like Klopp says, so they're not going to actually fix it.
That term clear and obvious, that in itself is subjective, right? It's not defined. I mean, offside you can tell, okay, it's black or white. Okay, some really dodgy calls which would have been given or not given in previous years, but I understand it's the rule. VAR can your toes offside doesn't count. I get that, but it's these things you mentioned there, the fouls earlier in build up to goals or dives in box. It's so subjective still. I don't know. Handballs we saw this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not going to go away, right? I don't think. No. They're not going to say, you know what, it's failed. Let's stick with it. I think we've got to just begrudgingly accept it, even though we dislike it, don't we, Deej?
Yeah.
I like it.
Do you? You a fan of it overall?
Overall. Yeah.
Was the game really broken before? Seemed to be doing pretty well.
Well, no, that's the truth. I just think that it was. I like the fact that the VAR is going to be there to protect, the big decisions, but I think we got to figure out what to use it for, what not to use it for.
Yeah, the blatant errors.
Yeah,
the howlers.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
NFL's had it for years. It's
Yep.
still far from perfect. Right, big issue.
Good point.
You got a big question, Craig?
Yeah, how about this weekend, the FA Cup game between Haringey Borough and against Yeovil
Haringey.
Town.
Yeah, Haringey Borough.
Yeah, so the game was abandoned because of racial abuse against the goalkeeper and the defender, allegedly. There's been some people arrested at this moment in time. And is it a watershed moment? Should England have done that in Bulgaria? Should the players be put in a position that if you were racially abused, I know they're talking about walking off the field, finally we've seen some teams have actually done it. Now, it's a lower division team, doesn't make it any better, doesn't make it any worse, but they've stood by it. And both teams, we've got to get this right too, both teams were united, they came out together against it. Both clubs have spoken up against it, the racism, and it's about time that somebody's done that. And it might just be the start of something that we see in the future that I would like to see, that if people are being racially abused, that it's not acceptable. And quite frankly, I'm freaking tired of talking about this shit that we hear over and over again from Europe. But we've covered it with Europa League. We've seen it internationally, Danny.
But you look at the BBC's website over the weekend, or even this morning if you go on it, 4 of the main headlines are about racism in the game, whether it be Haringey Borough. I think there was one at Sampdoria this weekend with Sampdoria and Roma.
Yeah, Roma apologised via a tweet.
And I'm
Arresting
really
Bulgaria as well.
I'm really glad that this has happened again this weekend, and that both teams have decided to walk off. So I have to give a lot of credit to the head coach of that team, but also to the players from both teams. But it just disgusts me that this is still going on in this age and time, and that the authorities and the federations are doing jack shit about it.
That's the issue, right?
That's the biggest issue for
just
me.
have no concern about it, it appears.
So now the clubs and coaches and players are having to take on responsibility and act themselves. Where if this is happening within a club or within a stadium, then it's simple. Whether it's an international team or it's a club team, you pull them out of the competition.
Yeah.
You make them play behind closed doors for a certain amount of time. I assure you the clubs will do more then to stop this.
The trouble is, I mean, it's not even necessarily a football issue, right? It's a society issue.
Yeah.
All right. This goes beyond, sadly,
And it's the minority.
their
We know it's the
platform.
minority.
Right. But still, I'm with you, and it will take that, teams walking off the field. Now, the issue, I think, internationally is there's so little trust in UEFA that if a team walks off the field, will they be punished for that? I wouldn't put it past UEFA to send sanctions down on, for example, England for walking off the field, because that contravenes their rules, which is ludicrous. I understand that, but it will take.
Let's hope that's not the case.
Let's hope not. But do you
yeah.
trust UEFA to do the right thing if a team does that? I don't.
I don't think they're going to touch.
They hand out €1,000
yeah.
fines for racial abuse.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
Come
the
on.
fines are pathetic, and then if you throw a sponsorship on your shorts or something like that, your fine will be more.
Yeah, more, exactly.
Than racially abusing somebody. I think they're worried about, and they've talked about it in the past, the authorities, that it is a society problem, it's a cultural problem, that we're not here to fix it. We try to, promote equality and acceptance and all of these things, but at the end of the day, they don't do enough to do about it, right?
We talk about having more BAME managers within and head coaches within the leagues. Mm-hmm. Okay,
explain what that is, just for people that don't know.
BAME, so black
Asians
and minority,
minorities,
and so they're trying to get more coaches, which I agree with as well, within the structures of the teams, whether it be head coaches or on the staff. But why are they not saying this at UEFA level as well? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For me, there's not enough minorities actually working in UEFA or FIFA as well. So unless that happens, it's going to be the same old story every time, Shams.
Yep.
It's unfortunate, as I said, that we're still speaking about this in this present day.
Yeah, but it seems, let's be honest, culturally it seems to be getting worse right now, given the political climate around the world.
Yeah, I really do.
So
it's on an incline. We're not seeing it getting better. We're seeing it getting worse. I think social media pulls out the worst in people too, and it exposes it even more so. And sadly, Well, in some ways you could say it, in positive ways it is getting better, but sadly I'm not seeing enough done about it by the authorities to push this subject.
Now, I'll give Bulgaria's government credit to a certain point. They demanded the firing or the ousting of the Bulgarian top guy. He left. Yeah. There's movement there, but yeah, maybe you've got to start punishing the individuals as well, charging these people in the stands. Maybe that's how it happened. But I'm with you. I mean, it's great that Haringey and they walked off the field. It's brilliant. It's a start, but you need that big team, that big club to do it with the world's eyes on it.
Yeah,
I think
it's coming soon.
It's going to happen at some point. Yeah. All right, fellas, we're out of time. I want to mention before we leave those. Let's leave in a high, shall we? We've got a great tweet from Kevin Richard, who really enjoys the podcast. We're talking about how will the CSA promote these young stars, from Christian Sinclair to Alphonso Davies, right? And Kevin Richard talks about his club, Miramichi United. They've got a new clubhouse, and on the doors of their washrooms to promote Canadian soccer, they've got pictures of Alphonso Davies for the boys and Christian Sinclair for the girls. It looks amazing.
Yeah,
and the kids are now recognizing and talking about these faces in their clubhouse.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that actually out in Oakville Soccer Club too. They do that as well with a bunch of the
Blue Devils
former. No, I don't think it was the Blue Devils. The indoor facility there.
Soccer club.
Yeah. So they have women from the area that have played for the national team, and
that's
men
great.
As well on the doors or on
That's
the
a
walls.
great idea. I love it.
It is great.
Just get these personalities, these icons out there to the public.
We see it in every other sport here, especially hockey, promoting every aspect of it. And here we got a guy like Alphonso Davies playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. He's a Canadian kid, great story, and everybody should know about him for sure.
Yeah, they should. All right, boys, we are definitely out of time now. Gone long once again, as we generally do, but there's so much to get to, and half this stuff we didn't even get to once again. We need a longer podcast, Dan.
Longer podcast.
Yeah. All right, thanks to Joshua Kloke of The Athletic. A great chat regarding Toronto FC. It's a Champions League week, everyone. Should be some great games. We'll revisit those next Monday. So Craig, Danny, Dan, Eggplant, cheers for listening. Cheers for watching.